beautiful people, let's get started with today's look. My eyes are primed with the Urban Decay Primer Potion in Original and the Fenty Beauty Soft Matte Pro Filter Foundation Primer. For today's look, we're going to be using the Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette, and I'm starting off by picking up the shade New Wave. I'm going to be building this up on the perimeter of the lid, so this is going to be in the crease, slightly above the crease, the inner portion of the lid, and also the outer portion, just bringing it down to the lash line. I am bringing it a little bit onto the lid because we're going to be doing a halo eye, and I want to have that shade there to help with the transition. With the shade All Star, I'm going to be building this up on the outer third of the lid, bringing it into the crease, and then also I'm going to be building up on the inner third of the lid. So I'm focusing first on placement, just getting like that wing shape correct and making sure that the shadow is where I need it to be. And then later on, with the opposite side of my brush, I'm going to start blending it out with the shade we initially put down. And I believe I did pick up a little bit of New Wave again to help soften out the lines. With my KVD concealer, I'm going to be using this to carve out the center of the lid space. So as you guys saw, I was looking up, like I was tilting my head down but looking up so I can see where my crease is. And I'm bringing it slightly above that because I know that my eyeshadow tends to transfer if I cut it exactly in the crease. And I'm just going to continue to carve out the lid space. I'm kind of doing like a thick tornado shape, if you will. And then I'm dipping back into that red shade All Star, and I'm helping with just like defining that shape and making sure that it's smooth on the areas where I place the concealer. And now I'm just picking up the shade Adorn, and I'm using my finger to apply it all over the area we just carved out. So I'm going back in with the shade All Star just to help define the crease again and just get everything in the right shape that I want it to be. And now I'm picking up the shade Rowdy, and I'm going to be building it up on the outer and inner third of the lid, and then also bringing it into the crease. This is one of those looks where you're going to see me going back and forth between the shades I previously used to help blend everything out. And right now I'm just making sure that Rowdy is blended out as much as I want it to be. And then also I will go back, as I said already, I will go back into the shade All Star just to bring back that warm hue into that area since I put down like that cool plummy shade. I'm pretty sure at this point I'm not picking up any new shadow. I'm just using the fluffier side of the brush to blend everything out. Moving on to the face, I'm picking up my e.l.f. color correcting stick in the shade Deep, and I'll be applying this to all the portions of my face that I want to color correct because of my hyperpigmentation. So in my last tutorial, I spoke about how I put too much color corrector on. Well, what had happened was, I did it again. My bad. I mean, But yeah, just using my damp beauty blender to blend that out, and it's damp with water. And now I'm just using my Fenty Beauty matchsticks in the shade Suede, so I'm placing this down on all the portions of my face that I want to highlight. And for contour, of course, my Fenty Beauty matchsticks in the shade Espresso. Then finally, for foundation, I'm going in with my ABH foundation stick in the shade Ebony. And like I said in my previous tutorial, I'm still really into the idea of putting down all my cream products and then blending it out later, because I feel like it helps with placement, making sure that my products aren't overlapping and just putting it in the specific spot where I want the product to be focused or concentrated, and then going in with my damp beauty blender, stamped with the water still, and blending everything out. But like guys, like I promise, like between me and you guys, like I won't put that much color corrector on next time, because like I don't want to be orange. I just want a good base. I just don't want to be orange. So like I'm gonna fix that next time. Like I'm making a mental note. I ain't finna do it next time. I won't do it. All right? I got this. After my contour, I go in and blend out my highlight, and then last I'll blend out my foundation. So I'm just being super careful that the portion of the sponge that I use to blend out the highlight, I don't start blending out the foundation. I'm always constantly using a different portion of the beauty blender, because I don't want it to start mixing like the colors and then you start losing like the difference between value on the face. So I'm just going in with a super like specific hand, if you will, to make sure that I'm just using a specific spot on the beauty blender for wherever I'm blending out. And for the nose, I still use a smaller beauty blender to blend out the nose contour, and then I'll go in with a bigger one to soften out the lines. With my KVD translucent powder, I'm going to be using this to set all the portions of my face that I highlighted. So I'm going to be baking on the nose. So as you guys are seeing right now, I'm just putting all of the powder on my nose and just making sure that it's sitting in the right area. And then I'll go in and place the powder on all the areas where I highlighted on the face. For this time, I'm pretty much just putting the powder where it needs to be, and then after that I'll go in and blend it out. I'm not really baking it, I'm just really just putting it down. And also, side note, I have oily skin, so if you have dry skin, don't do this, sis. Like, don't put that much. Like, definitely use like a much lighter hand. But because I'm oily and I know I get oily throughout the day, I don't mind packing that powder on. But girl, if your skin is like dry, don't put that much. Don't do what I do. Just don't do that. To set everywhere else on the face, I'm going in with my MAC Mineralized Skin Finish in the shade Dark Deep. With my Becca Cosmetics Multitasking Perfecting Powder in the shade Deep Bronze, I'll be using this to add more depth to my contour. So I go in with a super light hand, and then I use my previous brush to blend everything out, because this is a pretty deep shade and I just want a subtle contour, so I'm being super light-handed with this. Moving back to the eyes, I'm grabbing my MAC Smolder Eye Kohl, and I'm going to be building this up in the waterline and also on the lash line. Dipping into my Amrezy palette, I'm going to be picking up the shade BK. So whenever I put a shade in the waterline, I like to set it with an eyeshadow. So I'm first going to do that, and then I'm going to smudge it out the slightest bit on the lash line. I don't want it too blown out. Then I'm picking up the shade Rowdy from the Subculture palette, and I'm going to be using a smudge brush, still keeping it super close to the lash line, just adding a little bit of a depth to it, if you will, and just smudging it out right below that black shade. And with the shade New Yorker from the Amrezy palette, I'm just using this to blend and smooth out the lower lash line. For a liner, I'm going to be using my KVD tattoo liner in the shade Trooper Black. So since I want the focus to be mostly the eyeshadow, I'm putting a super thin line on the lash line, mostly to prep for lashes. And then after this, I'm going to be dipping into the shade BK from my Omrizi palette. I'm using an angled brush and doing kind of like a small wing liner. As I said, like I want most of the focus to be on the eyeshadow, so I didn't want to go in with something stark like the liquid liner. I want to use an eyeshadow that may be a little bit softer. Picking up the pressed glitter Gemini, I'm going to be using my finger to apply it on the lid, so I'm looking down so that the glitter doesn't fall on my face if it does fall at all, and I'm applying it very sparsely. Back to subculture, I'm picking up the shade Electric. I don't know why I look so troubled. So I'm wetting my brush with my setting spray, then I'm going to dip into the shade Electric and I'm going to apply it to the inner corner of my lid. I just want to have that intensity, so that's why I'm wetting the brush. Moving on to blush, the usual from ColourPop, Parakeet. And of course for highlight, Anastasia Beverly Hills Omrizi Highlight. For anyone who may be wondering, my lashes are from ABH and they're in the style Fashion. For lip liner, Edible from Milk Cosmetics. And I'm going to be using the shade Bittersweet from Anastasia Beverly Hills, and this is a liquid lipstick, one of my favorites to be exact. And to finish off this look, my e.l.f. Illuminating Mist and Set Spray. After I fan myself off for a bit, I'm just going in with a clean side of my beauty blender and pressing everything into the skin using a super light hand. That's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Bless up, and until next time, sending out much peace, love, and enlightenment. Bye guys.